Hello, hello. This is Yuri of Moving Sales Professionals and Let's Talk Moving podcast. And with me today, I have Adam Holman, the owner of Sweet Movers out of Austin, Texas. How you doing today?
Great. How are you?
Good. You're fairly new to the business, so about 3 years running. So what had you decided to start a moving company? What led to that?
Yeah, so I worked for probably five different moving companies around Austin. Like my very first one was at a van lines company, and then I've went from that to working at a place where the guy only had like one to two trucks. So I kind of saw the wide range of like sizes of companies and that, and where a lot of stuff was
Sure.
like lacking as far as like customer service and care and all that kind of stuff. So I'd done it for so long and figured I could, add my part to, improve the moving services in Austin.
And I think that's important. I mean, one thing about van lines, obviously, is that van lines, they do tend to have more of a brand ideal in place than some of the smaller movers. Because
Hmm.
majority of the smaller companies, obviously, initially they start for the purpose of obviously paying the bills and everything else. So some of them are not necessarily, at least not right off the bat, are not necessarily thinking about, oh, we're going to be around 10 years down the road. Van lines at the point where get to a point where they're a van line, they have a lot more to lose basically at that juncture. When you come and you work for a van line, they're focused more about the brand and making sure that they keep that going and that people choose them for the brand because it's the brand name that keeps them going for long term. They're in for the long haul.
Right.
Some of the initial moving companies, they don't necessarily all start with that picture. Not to say that some don't, but some are like, okay, let me make some money on the side. Let me see how things go. And then, if it happens to work out, great, I'm going to keep on doing. And if it does, I'm just going to move on, right? So a lot of people think that way when they get into the industry, at least if they don't have like a full-blown plan of how they're going to approach it with a 5 year, 10 year, 15-year plan down the road.
And now for a word from our sponsors. If you're a moving business owner, you may have already heard of Moversville, an email marketing service that helps moving companies increase, repeat, and referral business. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services that cater specifically to the moving industry. You can find companies that provide moving software, moving sales services, marketing services, moving equipment providers, and much, much more. Visit moversville.com today to learn more.
What do you do that's different from your competition? I mean, obviously, you said you had the experience of working with the van line, you had experience of working with a smaller mover. What is it that you're doing specifically that either, similar to what either one of those places are doing or different?
I've kind of pulled in different things from different places that I've worked at that I liked. Like we come in and we have the door covers and rug runners and we wrap all the furniture. Just the presentation is lacking in a lot of companies. If they just did like that little bit of attention to detail, being on top of it with the customer, having good character guys over guys that are experienced. I'd rather train up somebody that's got good character that doesn't know how to move rather than some 10-year vet that has like his way of doing things and
Right.
it's kind of hard
And
to
I and
train
I
that
and
out
I
of them.
agree with that. That's the same thing that I prefer to do with my sales reps as well. I prefer to teach them from scratch. I prefer to take somebody that has sales experience versus moving company experience per se, and teach
Right.
them how to apply their sales experience specifically within the moving industry. Because the problem is that when you bring somebody that has experience and coming from another company, you don't know who taught them.
Yeah.
And the problem is you tend to find out if it's bad, you find out very, very quickly. And then you may be faced with a prospect of trying to fix the aftermath.
Yeah, there's
And
a lot of
that's
bad habits that
right,
the
right.
guys pick up.
That's a big, big deal because to me, like I don't want to we want to be as accurate as possible when we do this type of work. We're in business to make money, of course, but frankly, I've always viewed it that way, and so do the people that I hire. We all want to be able to sleep at night. We don't want to get nightmares about some old lady that was supposed to get moved for $500 and the move turned into a $1,500 nightmare and she's on fixed income and doesn't have the money to pay. And, she's almost having a heart attack just talking to us and looking at that bill and whatever. And it's just like, it's a complete mess. And we don't want to work with companies that work that way because it's stressful. It's not just stressful for the customers who, I mean, we're in the middle. So we're there we view it these customers are customers, right? Because ultimately we're the ones that are having the conversation. We're the ones that are selling your company to them, right?
Hmm.
So we feel whenever shit hits the fan and whenever stuff really goes down and it's not good, we definitely feel bad about it and we definitely feel responsible about it. I'd like to think that we have a conscience. So we're not being a broker, we don't care about our next fix. And it's a known thing in the industry that a lot of guys that do work for brokerages, I'm not going to say that that's all of them, but one of the known things in the industry is that they do employ a lot of guys that frankly need a fix. Those guys, they don't care about what's going to happen to that grandma tomorrow, and we do. So we want to make sure
Right.
it's done properly. So it definitely makes it's easier to work with companies that like they do have character and do have a moral compass and do want to take care of their customers.
Does your company need more creative marketing and ad campaigns to improve traffic and organic leads? Well, Moving Sales Professionals has a solution for you. We have partnered with social media marketing agency that has over 300 million views on their ads and videos across social media, and they have generated over $35 million for their clients over the last 10 years alone. Their services include content creation, social media ads, pay-per-click campaigns, website and funnel development, Google Ads, email marketing campaigns, lead generation, and much, much more. For limited time only, they have discounted rates for their services. Sign up for a free consultation call with us via our Calendly link on our website or below this video.
And the other part too is that you want to, especially if you're trying to build long term in the industry, you want to think about what happens down the road, not the fact that you're going to make extra $200 today. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's not always
Right.
about today. You may be able to make that $200 today, and the customer's going to be upset, but you made the $200. But
Yeah.
then down the road, you're not going to get referrals. You're not going to get repeat business. You're not going to get reviews that are going to help you get more business. So was that $200 worth losing, $10,000 worth of business potentially?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, I've definitely had like whenever there's some kind of issue or disgruntled, I'd much rather, take a little bit off the top to make them happy and give them, that security. Because yeah, I mean, as of right now, I'm getting quite a bit of even in just the 2 years of like repeats and referral customers. I would much rather have someone happy that's gonna send me to their friend or to their relative than just, get the most out of them that I can that one time.
Sure. And I mean, that's not to say that, that customer in this business, we certainly do know that customer unfortunately is not always right. And you
Oh
do
yeah,
get
definitely
customers
not.
that you're never going to make happy no matter what you do and no matter how you
Yeah,
bend and which
that's
way
for
and
sure.
backwards and forwards and what have you and sideways. There are going to be those. And I think
Hmm.
that there are a lot of owners that worry about reviews and they do for a good reason, but keep in mind, there is there's a bad review and then there's a bad review. So when you get a bad review from somebody that's how they operate their life by
Oh yeah.
making other people miserable and by trying to cut corners and trying to, their way to another couple $100 discount or whatever. It depends on how you respond to a review like that. Sometimes you just gotta cut your losses and just gotta draw a line somewhere and say, hey, look, we can do this for you. If this doesn't work, I understand. I'm sorry, but we can't do any more. Are you going to accept it or you're not going to accept it? And if they don't accept it, you say, okay, that's fine. At that point, that person probably already wrote a bad review, so they're trying to basically,
Hmm.
get you to do it for money. So at that point, you just say, okay, I'm sorry. If you're not willing to accept it, we're going to rescind our offer at this point. We wish you the
Hmm.
best of luck. And at that point, you go back to that review and you respond and you say, hey, this is what really happened. And go step by step, be very professional. Don't, like if you're going to say something that where you're trying to frankly needle that customer, Don't make it petty, but if you
Right,
feel like you have to make a certain point, make sure that it's well said and
right,
well worded, where it's like, okay, this is what happened. This was the situation. This is what the customer did. This is what we did. This is what we offered, even though we didn't have to, for example. The customer refused to accept that and just kept on trying to get us to pay him more and more money. At that point, we decided to rescind our generous offer of something that we were simply trying to do to work with the customer. We rescinded
right,
that offer, and we are responded to this review in such a way to make sure that you guys are aware of the situation and you make a decision based on what you hear and not based on one-sided story. Because
right,
realistically, people that are going to go into depth of looking up companies' reviews, they will probably read a couple. And if they do read a couple, they're not necessarily always looking at what happened. They're also looking at how the company responded to whatever this person wrote.
right.
And it's that response that often makes them choose you because they've dealt with people just like this person
Hmm.
in their lifetime, probably. And they know people just like that. I mean, look, we've had people that have issues with the fact that movers are using their bathroom, God forbid, or that they
Yeah.
ask for a drink of water or what have you, or
Hmm.
it's, 110 degrees outside and they think that they're gonna run nonstop, 60 miles an hour. That's
Right.
not gonna happen. Same thing if it's freezing or they have boxes that they say, oh, we have 10 boxes, but each box weighs 100 pounds, which of course we did not know because the customer won't tell us that, right? It's not a one person carry. You have to have three guys carry the one box. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? So, and God forbid those boxes bottom out or anything like that, right? So we all know that stuff like that happens. So it's you gotta treat it situation by situation. And people, like I said, people that do read reviews, they're there tend to be more people that question companies that have like 1,000 reviews and 5.0 stars with not a single situation that makes them, frankly, look human.
Right. Yeah, it looks fake if they, yeah,
Right.
if
So
those
it
were the
makes you
numbers.
question if
Yeah.
it can't be that good, right? So it makes you question, well, why is it that good? Is it because they really are that good, or is it because they're paying the bad ones off to keep up the appearances?
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the business that we're in. I mean, when you're dealing with customer service, when you're dealing with the work that you're providing, you got, sometimes you have like we're all people. Sometimes things happen just because a personality of a foreman on the job and the customer clashes.
Right.
Because the
Yeah.
customer is trying to tell the foreman how to do his job. Meanwhile, he's not the one that's carrying that 300-pound piece of furniture.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and he's telling him how he's supposed to do this. Okay, why don't you come and help us then? If you're so knowledgeable of this, I can direct and do this too.
Oh yeah, the funniest ones where you show up and they're like, "All right, I'm gonna load the truck. You just bring the stuff down to me." And I'm like, "Okay, that's
Not gonna
I don't know
happen.
if you treat a plumber like that or you say, "Oh, I'll get under there and you just hand me the
Well, it's
wrench."
my favorite
Yeah.
is absolutely, when you have somebody to tell you, oh, I have a three-bedroom townhouse, two guys should be able to get this done in 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
at that point, I
Like,
usually,
what do you need me for then? Why
me
are you
being the smart ass that I am, of course, and I'm pretty clear with my personality. Me being the smart ass that I am, I usually ask them if they know Superman.
Yeah.
At that point, I'm like, and if they do, if they have his number, if I can have his number, because
Hmm.
there's no way two guys are moving that townhouse in 3 hours. I have a townhouse. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's why I think on like pricing and that stuff, I found that just the straight hourly rate, it's like up front, there's no like,
Well,
oh, at the end of the
reality,
move, because I've
right.
heard so many stories where at the end of the move they told him it was going to be $700 and then the bill comes and they're like, oh, there was extra charges for this and it's really 1,200. And I like the
Well,
transparency of
reality is
just an
this. The
hourly.
companies that quote things based on flat rate, let's be honest about that. The flat rate is always based on something. Whether it's a specific inventory list or specific poundage or specific truck size or
Hmm.
specific volume of the shipment. majority of the people that we're talking to, they won't know how many boxes they have until they're done packing.
Right. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and then a good percentage of them is not going to call you and tell you that, oh, well, I actually have 100 boxes instead of 20. Some of them will. Some of them will
Yeah.
call you, and some of them will tell you, you know what, we finished packing, and it's this. And then you make the adjustments, and they're usually fine with it, right? Because
Oh
they do
yeah.
realize that they have a lot more. But then you have the type of people that are just gonna wait till the day of the move and kind of go like, oh, well, let's see what happens, right?
Hmm.
But
Yeah. I don't know why people think that if they tell you they have less than they have and you show up that their bill is going to be lower than like that's going to be
yeah,
the original thing that you
yep.
told them. It's like I
I
don't know
remember a
how.
specific
Yeah.
situation where I had a long distance move scheduled to Florida, and the customer decided on their own volition that they're going to add all this additional stuff. So they added all this additional stuff, and they thought that they were going to pay something, right, specific. And of
Hmm.
course, they had a lot more. The weight was a lot more. The price, of course, went up for everything. The packing went up for everything. So I got this, after the move was completed, they were upset. I got this whole letter from their quote unquote lawyer. I don't know if it was an actual lawyer or if it was them that were drafting or whatever the
Hmm.
case was. But anyway, supposedly this letter from a lawyer, right? So I looked over this letter, I read it, and then I responded to it point by point by point, and I said, did your did your person, the person that hired you to handle their business for them, did they provide you with the quote that they received and the verbiage and what they signed? If they did, then you would see that this price is based on weight. You'd see that we're going to an official scale. Here, the receipts for the scales were presented. You're more than welcome to contact the weight station to make sure to confirm. The customer waived their right to come to the scale. Thus, they can't complain about the weight
Hmm.
because they had an opportunity to go. They decided not to go. So they did not bother to call me and advise me that they had more stuff, at which point they would have been told what that the estimate is different and they charge whatever. But because they didn't make those changes, this is why the price changed. This if they followed this, they found that everything is in the contract. Everything is here's a signature, here's a signature,
Yeah.
here's a signature. I did not get a single response after that response.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I
Because
mean,
the
they were
thing
trying
is,
to.
they start doing that. So if they did contact an actual lawyer and the lawyer actually looked at the contract, they'd say, you know what, they're right. But then again, if you're dealing with a broker, that's a whole different story altogether because we know how that works.
One of the things I've learned is just saying no to some people is sometimes the best
Yeah.
thing. Just
Yeah.
being like,
Sometimes you
sorry, I
just
don't
need to
think we're a
hold your
good fit for
ground.
you. Yeah.
Right. Sometimes you just need to hold your ground. And frankly, I tell this to my sales reps all the time. It's okay not to book certain jobs.
Right.
And you, as owners of moving companies, you need to accept that too, because frankly, if I haven't even had a chance to provide a quote and I'm already getting yelled at because of certain questions I'm asking about the move, what do you think is going to happen on the day of?
Oh
It's going to
yeah.
be a lot worse than this conversation that I'm having. So at that point, I'm either literally doubling the price to make it worth my time and movers'
Hmm.
time because I know I'm going to be dealing with this customer on the day of the move. I already know.
Yeah.
I already know it's gonna happen. I already know I'm gonna have to deal with this phone call, and instead of booking like three, four, five other jobs, I'm gonna have to spend an hour on this one person,
Hmm.
right? So at
Yeah.
that point, either I'm gonna make sure that it's worth my time and worth the company's time, or I'm just gonna say, you know what? I'm so sorry. My last job for that week just got booked.
Yeah.
Sorry, can't help you
Yeah.
anymore.
It's yeah, some people aren't worth the headache for sure.
No, no. I mean, I've had one where the person didn't even book with us. They put the deposit, then they canceled the deposit, and then they complained about the way that the contract looked after the fact with the job that never took place.
Yeah.
And it's like I walk over to the company warehouse. I don't like the way that the company warehouse moves. So not only do I choose not to use the moving company that's using that warehouse, I'm also complaining on the Better Business Bureau on Google because I don't like how their awning looks. You're not the fashion police. You're not here to tell me how much you like you know what kind of things I have on my truck or on my awning or on anything else. I'm here to do the job for you. So,
Hmm.
but you still get people that write reviews about that. They don't like
Oh yeah.
they don't like how the stuff looks from the outside. You have no idea how we do the work. You don't have no idea. You never hired us to do the job, but yet you're finding something to complain about.
I had somebody that they they called and asked for a quote. I told them what our rate was. I told them how long I thought it was going to take, and then they just had an issue with the pricing, and they were going back and forth on me. And I'm like, sorry, this is what it is. And then they write a bad review that I'm too expensive. I'm like, how? Just call somebody else. Why is I'm
Yeah,
not trying to be the
okay. I'm
absolute
I'm
cheapest.
I'm
That
too.
is not,
At the
yeah,
end of the day, we want to sell value, the price.
right. Yeah, I'm not trying
Price,
to
they're
charge the just be the cheapest one out there.
yeah. One this morning that was fun. So the one this morning, they were moving a couple of items, and it was going to an auction house. So I'm assuming they want an auction for some like antique furniture, right? But
Hmm.
the fun part is not that, and the fun when she didn't have an issue with the price. The fun part wasn't that. The fun part was the fact that she wanted us to go there with the bill or with the receipt for payment to pick up this furniture and bring it to her new place without any representative of hers being present.
Mm,
So at that point, I'm like, I mean, I can't do it. You have to be there, or your representative, or your husband, or somebody needs to be there that's going to sign off on the paperwork and whatever. What if the items that you bought are damaged and have scratches on it? You need to be present there to say that we're not the ones that did it.
right. Yeah.
And she's like, well, if we could be there, we'd do this ourselves. I'm like, okay, well, good luck.
Right.
And if you
Yeah.
find somebody that's going to do this without you or your representative being there, good luck with how that comes out.
Hmm.
That's one thing. The other thing too, it's always fun when they give you the price and you're like, okay, well, let's think about it this way. 2 day laborers want to make 200 bucks per day per person. That's $400. That's not including truck rental. That's not including gas. That's not including any kind of insurance or liability or anything else. Where if they run your dresser into your wall and cause a gash where that you have to fix, that's your
Yep.
problem. So why should I cost less than them? I should be more
Right. Yeah.
expensive.
I mean,
I
yeah.
should be a lot more expensive because my price also includes the truck and the liability
Hmm.
and everything else.
You could go find a couple of guys on Craigslist to
Yeah.
if that's what you're going for. It's
Exactly,
your
exactly. I have
angle.
a
But
gentleman that's saying, "Oh, you quoted me this price on Yelp." I'm like, "Yeah, I sent you a minimum quote on Yelp. You sent me an inventory. Your move is not going to take 2 hours,
yeah.
and you probably need packing. So no, this move is not going to cost you 500 bucks.
Hmm.
Oh, I'll find somebody else. Okay, good luck.
I mean, because I've done moving for so long, but all of this, it's all the other stuff that I'm learning how to do. Because I'm right now, I'm answering the calls, I'm sending the emails, I'm kind of just a one-man show right now. I'm handling everything on the front end and the back end and going out on moves. So
Well,
it's
once you feel you're ready, we're here for you. Because that's what
okay.
we do at
Yeah.
Moving Sales Professionals. One thing that you don't want to do, especially once you're growing, you don't want to be answering the phone while the truck is running in the background. And then at the same
Yeah.
time, if some customer is calling you, the phone needs to be picked up every time. If the call is ringing and ringing and ringing and no one's picking up, that's like sometimes when I'm looking at customers or I'm looking at specific areas, sometimes I'd give some of the companies that are out there a call just to see if the
Hmm.
phone gets picked up. And if it's rings and rings and rings, then frankly, they need me. They need this, they need the service because that's something that's not supposed to happen because every time it does, you're losing business. Or rather, you're
Yeah.
not necessarily losing business, you're not gaining business. That's the story of the industry. And anything that you want to suggest to somebody that's planning to get off the truck and trying to start their own thing?
I mean, having the right group of guys working with you is probably one of the most important things, I would think.
Absolutely.
Having somebody that you can hand a contract and depend on to just give the keys and go handle the job is so hard to find. Being honest with the customers, being upfront, sticking to some kind of code or, ethics like you were talking about. Being transparent goes a long way, I think.
It does, and frankly, if you get to that first job and that job is bigger, you already know at 9 in the morning, 8 in the morning, that you're not going to be there at that second job between 1 and 3. You already know
Right.
that.
Yep.
So instead of pushing things back and making it hard on yourself later, make that phone call. If you have operations, call your operations, let them know that that job is bigger, right? If you're
Yep.
the owner on the truck, tell the customer that you're doing there, hey, your job is bigger. It's gonna cost you more money in the end because you have more things to move. And then
Hmm.
make a quick call to that second customer and say, hey, you know what? We're at the first job. It's much bigger. We're not going to get there between 1 and 3. It's going to be more like 3 to 6. And we'll call you once we're finished and we're on our way. Meanwhile, you can, move some of the items yourself, or maybe we can reschedule you, or you can go back to work and we'll call you when we're done. And that way you don't feel like you're sitting there and waiting and losing your money and losing your time.
Right.
Having those conversations are important, and people will appreciate you more for it because you're not wasting their time. There's
Oh
nothing
yeah.
worse than getting a call at 4 o'clock when their arrival time was supposed to be between 1 and 3, where the person's already pissed because they spent their whole day waiting for you. And at that point, they say, where are my movers? I've been sitting here all day. And now
Yeah.
you have to tell them that they're not even going to be there for another hour or two. At that point, the level of stress for that person is even higher. They're going to pick on every little that you have on the piece of furniture that you've never touched before, that
Right.
happened 20 years ago, and now it's going to become your problem. You can forget about tips because at that point you're not getting them.
Oh yeah.
And of course, at that point, you guys are tired, so you're not going to move as fast as you did that morning.
Hmm.
And that second person, oh, they're going to tee you up for every one of those things. So at the end of the day, it's just these little pieces that make a difference between having a successful move and ending up with a good review, or at least not ending up with a bad review.
Just yeah, it's always something new,
But
like every
it's
day.
something you can
Always a
build
new
on, and
challenge.
with time,
Yep.
you can get to a point where you can be successful. It's certainly me, but you got to put in the work.
Hmm.
It's not something that's going to happen overnight, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think yeah, just having those upfront conversations with the customers and just even just have like being in a good mood, like having a good attitude on the move. People will look over a lot of stuff if the guys are nice and respectful and they can, I'd rather have a guy that's a little green that is like respectful to the customer than some guy that knows like everything there is to know about moving, but they're like smoking cigarettes on the job and like taking breaks and talking on the phone and
Or commands smelling like something they don't want to smell.
yeah,
You know,
right. Hmm.
guys, you're trying to run a business, whether it's a
Yeah,
short-term fix for you or a long-term plan, you still want to make sure you do it the right way at the end of the day, because you wouldn't want to be in their shoes. Either way, Adam, thank you very much for taking your time with me and jumping on the podcast with us. And we're going to make sure we have Adam's information. So if you want to reach out or you want to collaborate in Austin area, you'll be able to do that by reaching out with Adam. And of course, like, subscribe, and support the podcast. And once again, thank you very much for joining us. And like I always say, the world moves on its own, so let the professionals move yours for you. Thank you
right.
very much for joining us, and we'll talk again soon.